The threat of snowstorms approaching, we spoke with the senior programs manager for the Alzheimer's Association Maine chapter about safety tips for Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers.
Amy Angelo reminds caregivers about the importance of being prepared and having extra supplies ready in case of an emergency. She suggests checking to make sure extra medication, clothing, and any other care supplies are all at hand, in addition to typical emergency supply items.
Angelo also recommends planning ahead if a non-essential appointment occurs during a storm to try to reschedule in advance. One of the biggest threats to people with dementia or Alzheimer's is the risk of wandering, especially during winter conditions. Angelo emphasizes the importance of being ready for it by trying to prevent slips and watch for signs that a person may begin wandering.
Taking precautions to prevent wandering, noticing any agitation or sundowning that might be occurring in the person with dementia or Alzheimer's. And like I said, controlling the environment, turning on lights earlier before it gets dark, exposing the person to sunlight, during the day. And then as it gets later and colder, keeping the environment well lit and quiet.
The Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 helpline that anyone can call with questions at 800-273-3900. Angelo also reminds caregivers to take care of themselves as well. You can go to their website to find educational programs and support groups at alz.org/Maine.